Hello! Welcome to The Healing Artist. I'm your host, Frida. And friends, today I am so excited because we have Dr. Barbara Minton with us. She is a clinical psychologist, musician, and neuroscientist. And she has just created a new album called Calm the Storm. It was just released in collaboration with renowned musician guitarist Peppino D'Agostino. Barbara's work is rooted in using music not just as a background sound, but as a healing partner. Her compositions are informed by neuroscience and tailored to help listeners find calm and realignment on both emotional and psychological levels. She is focused on restoration, deeper awareness, and encouraging women to fully claim their purpose, not because they should, but because they truly want to. Barbara's story blends rigorous research, profound empathy, and a lived devotion to helping others move from disconnection into presence. Welcome, Dr. Minton, to the Healing Artist.
Thank you so much. It's
Oh,
it's, it's a joy to be here, really.
yay! Oh my goodness, I would love to learn more about music, neuroscience, and how you're blending it together and bringing us this album now.
Well, thank you for that. Let me just start by telling a little bit of a story of how I got into this. So I way back in the dark ages when I was in music school, I was actually majored in the trendy instrument of pipe organ.
Wait a minute, wait a minute.
The,
Hold on.
the very trendy instrument. And
And what brought you to what was the spark of the pipe organ?
It's really interesting. I was like most little kids. My mom signed me up for piano lessons, and then I learned to play the Hammond organ. If anybody's into rock music, they'll know Hammond B3s are used a lot in rock music. And when I was a teenager, I got introduced to the pipe organ, and pipe organs can make such a variety of sounds, and they're so massive. And
Yes.
as a teenage girl, I was in all that teenage angst, like nobody likes me, and I'm too smart, and I'm too this, and I'm too that. And but I could go over and I could play this incredible pipe organ with all these frequencies. I could play huge, loud sounds. I could play soft, shimmering, sort of ethereal sounds, and it just became such really a comfort and a true sanctuary for me. And so that's how it started. And the power of music just became very prominent in my life. And so that's why I went to music school. I changed my major my junior year, but it's kind of funny. You have an experience like this as a musician, and then I love psychology. It's part of who I am. And I have had so many years of being very content and drawn into this business of psychology in many different ways. And yet I came back around to music and how can we blend music really? Because music is so powerful. We have all this data on music. Music helps people with anxiety. If people who have depression use certain playlists, it decreases their depression by 50, 60%, which is better than medications.
Yes.
It helps premature babies gain weight and breathe better. And there's just I could go on and on about the hundreds of articles that have been written, research articles, but about the power of music, but it's never been put out there, and it's rarely used in clinical practice
Mm.
or hospitals. And because I cross these lines of knowing about the brain, knowing about clinical work in psychology, and knowing about music, it just seemed like this kind of natural culmination of these different parts of me, right? And all my careers, yeah. So that's
Beautiful.
how it happened, yeah.
Yeah. And now where did the neuroscience come in? When did that, so a natural musician. This is something that's deep in your heart from a young age, and now you're studied that. You're moving into, what did you switch your major to, or where did the science come in?
Yeah, it's sort of a funny story. What happened was I knew I had to get out of music because it was just burning me out. And I didn't see a good professional path forward as a pipe organist. It's a bit hard to make a living playing concert pipe organ. Some people do, but I don't think I was quite there. Um, and so when I went to change my major, the advisor said, well, you can't just get out of music, you have to change to something. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I said, well, what's the major with the very least requirements? I'll change to that while I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. And she said, psychology. I'd never taken a psych class. And I was like, okay, put me down as a psych major. And then I went and took intro to psych, and I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting. I think I'll take another one. Well,
Very cool. I love
yeah,
that.
2 PhDs later, here I am, and I've had a wonderful career. I got to work in rural mental health in Alaska and Native Alaskan villages with severely emotionally disturbed kids and their families, with gifted and highly gifted people. And then I got introduced to what's called neurofeedback, which is, I don't know if people are familiar with that, but it's really putting sensors on the brain. The brain likes to fire in patterns, and sometimes it gets stuck. So there's, for example, there's a network, an anxiety network. There's a PTSD network in our brain. These are patterns our brains fire in. And when we have certain experiences or certain genetics, our brains want to fire in those patterns. But those patterns are, when we get stuck in those patterns, it's not the best because we want our brain to be flexible, right?
Mhm.
So we want to be anxious if a bus is driving towards us, but we don't want to be anxious if we're sitting in our house trying to meditate. We want to be able to move into that meditative state. And so
Right.
neurofeedback helps train the brain to move out of these states. And I started thinking about this, and I was like, the brain likes to entrain to music. And what that means is that if a musical pattern comes in the brain likes to start firing in that pattern. That's why we like music, right? Upbeat music makes us happier because our brain starts to fire the way that music is made. Or this calming lyrical music our brain likes to become calmer because it's copying what that music is putting in. So I thought, I know specifics of how the brain is firing when it's getting stuck in these states, and I know where I want the brain to go because I can look at EEG, which is the electrical firing patterns of your brain. So why not compose curated music to help move the brain towards normal states? And so that's what I've been working on.
Beautiful. This is just so incredibly interesting. Just sort of coming back to the neurofeedback, I have noticed just in my own life, sometimes I crave certain sounds or like certain kinds of music, or something, I'll hear a new song and it just hits me in such a way, or it's used in like maybe a ceremony or something. I work a lot in like sitting in circles with women, and I'll take classes that way, and maybe the leader plays a song and then that just hits me in such a way that it's tied to this healing, so then I can return to that to re-feel those feelings. And but the way that you described it, I've never heard described before. So just noticing that, oh my God, that makes so much sense in my own life. And then just thinking also, maybe some people are very attracted to like heavy metal music. Well, that must like hit a certain way for them that it makes them feel a certain way.
Yeah, I'll say a couple things about heavy metal music and super intense music in general, like that. You see this in some classical music and actually some pipe organ music where the sounds are just so loud and powerful. And think about this, if you have trauma or
Mhm.
you have PTSD and stuff is swirling around in your mind, why wouldn't you want to go hear heavy metal or something so intense that it knocks everything else? You can't possibly be thinking about all the horrible stuff that happened
Yeah.
because these other this other input that's in your brain is so powerful that it drives everything out. And I've had clients who go down in mosh pits or go to
Mhm.
heavy metal concerts because all that stimulation kind of washes away the trauma that they're experiencing that they
Mhm.
can't figure out how to get rid of any other way.
Yeah.
I do want to say there's good and bad uses of music,
Say
right? So
more. Yes.
when a lot of us don't think about it, so we just listen to music we quotes like, but not all music that we like is good for us. And I can give you a couple examples. One is breakup songs. So let's say we've had
Okay.
a breakup and we're all sad. And I would say, now I'm speculating here, that it's good to listen to a breakup song because it validates your feelings, and we all want to be understood. We want to
Mhm.
know that this is part of the human experience, that this sadness being reflected back to us is telling us something important about who we are as humans and our need for this connection that has been broken. However, if you're still listening to a breakup song a year later
Right. So
and
you,
you're
yeah.
wallowing around in that, that is not so good,
Right. So
right?
using that music to feel it, to heal it, to cry through, but then moving on to not stay
So,
stuck.
yeah, and you just mentioned like I felt this emotion or I felt these past emotion in these things, which is good because it's giving you access to that. But then that emotion needs to heal or to move on, or to, if it's a negative emotion that you don't want, it needs to heal. If it's a positive emotion, if it's like I'm being called to something, like this music is taking me on a journey and I'm being called to something, then it becomes how do you turn that into action, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and so then you may want to change the type of music you're listening to something that helps spur action along.
Yeah. It almost seems like we need more awareness about this, just sort of in general. Because it's something I actually haven't really thought about. You're saying it, and I'm like, absolutely, that's hits. That makes complete sense. But I never thought about it. And it's such an easy thing that we all have access to.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I do these workshops, and they're super fun because I always have Pepino if he's around. He's a touring musician, so if he ever comes around, you should your listener should definitely go see him. He's amazing. But I have a live musician there, and we really talk about the different characteristics of music. I mean, we don't have time to do it here, right? But how can you actually put a playlist together that helps you achieve what your goals are? And then we have help people put these playlists together and use them. And it's just so cool when you link the research out there to actually making a difference in people's lives. Um, and that workshop's called Music, the Brain, and Healing. And I go through a lot of the research that we know about how music affects healing and then how you can use it to kind of help support your own healing. The music itself is not a treatment, but it creates an environment within which your body and your mind can heal itself.
Yes, it's another tool for your toolbox.
Another
Oh,
tool for your toolbox.
yeah, along with everything else. Now, is music and the brain and healing, is that a class that you teach in person? Do you teach it online?
We can teach it online if people are interested in it. I'll tell you, it's better in person.
Mhm.
And we do concerts too where we play through the album live, and plus a few other pieces that we like that people are interested in. Um, and what's really great about live music is you're being hit by all the frequencies.
Mm.
So in our live concert where we have pipe organ and guitar, which is such a beautiful combination because you have these ethereal sounds of the pipe organ and also the very deep kind of grounding bass of the pipe organ with the warmth and intimacy of the guitar. It's really beautiful. And these frequencies, all the entire range of frequencies are hitting your body, and it's a very different experience than listening to an album or being online. Online, you get the frequencies that your computer speakers
Yes.
pick up. And so it's still, I mean, I got to tell you, it's still an amazing experience. But
Mhm.
if you get a chance to do it live, it's definitely worth seeking that out.
Where are you located?
Well, right now, I'm actually from Idaho, and we did our first concert there. And I can tell you a little bit about what people said afterwards if you're interested. But right now, I'm in Berkeley because Pepino and I are going to be working on the next album, which is actually Songs for PTSD.
Oh,
So we're putting together, which will be quite different from this one from Calm the Storm that's out now. But we're working hard on that, and we're looking forward to getting that out. But Pepino's from the Bay Area, and so I'm here in Berkeley right now.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
so
just
hope
over
to
in
get,
Richmond.
yeah, so oh yeah, cool. So hope to get some stuff together here. Yeah.
That would be wonderful because everything you're saying, my husband is especially connected to music and he creates music for himself that he listens to over and over and over again. And I see that helping him move through his feelings and feel the feelings that he's having in order to, it's healing. Now, he wouldn't call it those things, but it's healing him.
Yeah, when I first started doing some of this stuff, I put together this little, what I thought was a crummy little song, but I just wanted to try some of it out with someone. And I had a client and I said, "Hey, would you listen to this while we do your neurofeedback training?" And she was like, "Yeah." And, she listened to it. And the next session she came in, "Can I listen to that again?" And the next session she came in, she listened to it for 60 hours in the office, her choice.
Mhm.
And I was watching this like, wow, what is going on? And then she said, "Okay, I'm all done with my training. I feel great. Can I take that song home with me?" And I was like, "Of course you can, because it's going to, kind of help keep my brain in the state where I want it." And I think once you have experiences like that as a musician and you see the power of this in people's lives, or as a psychologist, I was just like, why are we not doing this for everybody who comes through the door? It's so easy to add music in if you're a talk therapist, any kinds of interventions that we do in psychology. Medical people, they should be doing this, right? It's not that
Yeah.
hard. We have data on the efficacy of music. And so, part of my passion has been trying to get this out there. So like what you were saying, I haven't thought about this. Well, this is part of my mission, is to try to help people become more conscious. And I love that example of your husband. So beautiful. I mean, he figured
Yeah.
it out, right? He
On his
figured
own
it out.
without having the words, right? And
Yeah.
then he's pretty tight-lipped. Like he doesn't have,
Yeah.
so when sometimes he shares the music with me and it's almost like an in as to being like, oh, you
Yes.
feel like that.
I think music can really create a portal of connection, and
Mhm.
some people it's a connection to themselves, some people it's a connection to other people, some people it's a connection to a larger spirit,
Yeah.
or a religious experience, or all three of these things. And,
Yeah.
there's something very, very unique and powerful about music this way.
Yes, but well, when people gather in worship, like I'm just thinking, I've never been to a mega church, but I've seen videos of people like online and just like so into it, and it's like this live band, and I'm sure the acoustics are amazing, but
Yeah.
just like so within it, or even just doing like faith healing and stuff like that. When you're throwing music in there, there is such a power that can just rush through the body that it is creating a sensation. It is an experience. It is a change. You can have a lived, changed experience in your body. And I know I've felt that just going to concerts. Like some concerts have hit so hard that they just live in my body from now
Yeah,
on.
I mean, that gives me chills when you're talking about that, because it is a resonant experience. And one of the things, there is some research done on both people in orchestras and the audience, and their hearts all start syncing up and beating
Mm,
at the same pace and all this and that's only what's measured.
yeah.
There's many other things. And so I think music, as a connector and as a portal and as a way of kind of changing people's resonance with each other is very, very powerful. Now, this can be used in dark ways too, right?
Sure.
We've had
Thinking about like a bunch of kids getting hyped up before a football game, like rah, 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 rah.
exactly. And military, we've
Military.
had military bands for years because it's a way of marching people into battle. And
Right.
so it isn't that music is all wonderful. I mean, I've had people who have anxiety disorders, for example, that listen to music that make their anxiety worse. They like the music, which I get, because it's enlivening to them, and
Mhm.
yet it's also making their anxiety worse. And so we have to be ethical and careful and use our music in a healing way and not
Mhm.
in a destructive way.
Right. Yeah. I'm wondering about how did you I have multiple questions, but I'm kind of curious. So when you wrote, so now you composed Calm the Storm, the album?
So Pepino brought ideas in, and then I kind of gave suggestions, I'm going to say it that way, about ways to change these songs to work. So I knew the different characteristics based on the brain that I was looking for. So, and there's many different characteristics of music, right? One is tempo, like how fast the music is. I'll just tell you a few of them.
Yes,
There's
please.
many of them. So one is tempo, one is what we call timbre, and that's spelled Timbre. So sometimes people say it timbre, but it's timbre. Timbre is the sound that the instrument makes. So, a guitar makes a certain kind of sound that's very different from a trombone. And if you imagine just in your mind a trombone and then hearing a beautiful strum on a guitar, your brain will already be registering probably some different emotional reactions to that. So
Yes.
timbre, even though the notes are the same, timbre becomes very important in music. And then there are the actual notes. Are the notes high or are the notes low? And then there's phrasing. So we have phrasing in language. So if I start talking like this, after a while, you start to have an emotional reaction. And if I start just going on and I never stop and I never take a breath and I talk in this sort of sing song way, then you start to float off in the ether.
Right.
And
Right.
so music has phrases like that too. So phrasing is also very important. So because I know the frequencies that the brain is operating on and the frequencies and the pacing that I wanted to put into the brain, I had certain parameters that the music needed to stay within. And so some notes that were he proposed were too high, or some of the phrasing I would say, can we change it this way or can we change it that way? And now you can imagine I'm sitting in this room with this virtuosic musician composer. It's like telling Tom Cruise how to act in an action movie, right?
Right, right.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm sitting here doing this. And he is the nicest guy. I mean, he's like, oh, okay, let's try this or let's try that. And I feel so fortunate and so honored to be able to work with him. Um, and that's how we put this thing together.
And now, how did you study the brain to learn what everything you just said was the parameters to fit into? How did you learn the map in order to choose the notes and the timbre and the things within?
Yeah, it's funny. So I did a lot of studying. I've studied EEG for years,
Hmm.
electroencephalogram, and learned how to interpret that and do what's called quantitative electroencephalogram, where you actually do statistical analysis of these waves. And I don't know if you want to get into the
Well, I'm curious. So I have a friend, my friend Jim Brown. He's in his 90s now. He's nine, no, 80. I think he's 89 now. But Jim spent his life. He was a he did neurofeedback.
yeah.
And I've
Mhm.
sat in this chair. He's never done it for me because he's older now, but I've laid back in the chair and he's played me things and I've listened to different voice things in this chair that he spent years putting like little nodes on
Yeah.
people's heads and looking at their brains. So I think that you're talking about something similar. So I am really curious.
Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. So I and to answer your question, I didn't really know this would work. It was really a hypothesis on my part. It was kind
Sure.
of like, oh, I know the brain is stuck in this frequency. I know music in train. So if we write music in these frequencies, and we actually like played some of the notes and looked at an oscilloscope to see what the root sound of the note was and what the higher sounds were, to see, because I knew the brain would try to copy those. And then what I did to really see if it was working is pre and post imaging. So I had, on this album, I had 10 volunteers come in. We
Okay.
imaged their brain with the EEG before listening to the music, had them listen to the music and look at it afterwards. And I posted a couple of those on the website, which is musicandhealing.net, not .com, musicandhealing.net. And people can go there and look at it. But I honestly, when you're a scientist, you're always looking to find yourself wrong, right? You're like, okay, I gotta see if this is actually wrong here. Or is that right? And a lot of times your first efforts are wrong and you're like, oh, I learned something from
Hmm.
that. So
Just
the
in life,
first,
honey, just in life.
I know it's like the iterative process of
Yeah.
life, right? You try something, you fix, you try again, you fix. That,
Yes.
I mean, there's such a profound lesson there. But anyway, I did these first analyses and I was like, holy cow, this actually did work. And it's really kind of shocked me um, what's happened now. Not everybody has the same response, right? And if you happen to hate guitar, this isn't going to be the music for you, right? Um, we're actually using a wider variety of instruments on this next album, but that's kind of how the whole thing happened. And then we went out and just once we had the album out, we played it for some people, and people have been sending us their responses, and I've been really interested. Some people have reported some quite amazing, both spiritual and psychological responses to this music. And I think when the brain starts to heal itself, things happen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, cool things happen. And I don't think the music is causing it. I think the brain, it's helping the brain nudge, it's helping nudge the brain in the direction the brain wants to go. And then that person becomes more of who they can really be.
Right. To find that authenticity because it starts pulling away the layers of the things that are sitting on top that aren't really who you
Yeah.
are. You know, society and blah 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 said. I did listen to the album and I listened to it with my eyes closed and just sort of absorbed it. And it was a very calming experience. But I wanted to ask you, what is the best way for someone to use Calm the Storm? How would you
Yeah,
suggest
I
using it?
think the best way, if you have headphones and you
Hmm.
can listen to it and close your eyes, that's the best way. The headphones are going to pick up some of the lower frequencies that earbuds and just listening through your computer aren't going to pick up. But that said, the other night I couldn't sleep, and you know, I pulled my phone out and put it on, and after a while I was like, wait, it skipped a couple songs, and I was like, oh no, it actually didn't skip a couple songs. I was actually asleep.
Not at all.
I nodded off. So, it can still be helpful, but of course it's always nice to listen to music the highest fidelity possible and allowing it to come in. I actually though was contacted by somebody who said I was taking a final exam for my doing something on a PhD, and they said I listened to it while I was doing my exam, and they said it just helped me get through the exam so much better. So there's probably multiple ways of using it depending on what it is you're looking to do.
Yeah, it would be so cool if you could partner with other therapists and different practitioners and be using this album with their clients and then sort of like get more information and learn more about how I don't know if advancing is the right word, but like moving through the different traumas, how it was like assisting in helping things move a little faster or like
Hmm.
gain access to new insights maybe quicker or
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to do that, and I think, I mean, again, this is so. Uh, it's interesting. I had a therapist use some of this music with actually a teenage client. She said that she never could get the client to talk to her, and she said after talking about music, and I also advise people like ask your clients what music do they listen to
Mhm.
and how do they feel when they're listening to it and how are they using it. And a lot of times clients who won't tell you stuff, things will start to pour out as they talk about music. And that's what
Mm.
happened in this case. Is this teenage client, for the first time they had a connection because the client started talking about their music, how they felt about it, what it did and didn't do for them, and it changed everything. So these are things we don't get taught in grad school,
Yeah.
like it's not on our intake form, like ask your client what music they like. So yes, I'd love to partner, and I know Pepino's interested in this too, with people in other professions about how they can integrate this. And
Yeah.
I will say we just finished a workshop in June on using we use a variety of things. Well, we use music plus some writing, and also some, I hate to call it art because people think they have to be good at art, but it's like using different modalities to help sort of unlock and move into your most creative self in a
Mhm.
low key, kind of low pressure, non-performance based
Yeah.
environment where you're just sort of exploring. And that was so Oh man, that was so exciting and fun to do. And we had a wonderful group of people who had a great time and kind of moving forward on their own life's journey.
Yeah.
So many cool things to do.
You feel like because of your background, because you're ticking all of the boxes, you seem like the right representative to be bringing this forward in the world because you have both. You're both the scientist and you're the musician and composer. Like
Yeah.
you could be the mouthpiece for this because I feel like in the past things are so rigid, especially with psychology and stuff, but like not so much anymore. We're finally gaining access that's like, oh, that's not working and like we have more access to higher frequency energies, like different ideas, and like healing with sound is it, there's more space for it than when you first started. Let's put it that way. I've seen
Yeah,
more
there's still
space.
a lot of work to do, but
Yeah.
I think what's kind of interesting is the alternative and complementary health industries are huge. I mean, these are multi-billion dollar industries. Why is that? Well, it's because people are missing something in traditional approaches. And I mean, I do traditional approaches. I think they're very, very helpful. But adding in other modalities can have such a synergistic effect. And some of them are so easy. Why wouldn't you do that? I mean, things like nutrition. Come
Mhm.
on, really? Like,
Yeah.
I have people come into my office and they say I'm all anxious and I'm all depressed and I can't pay attention. I'm like, well, so what if it's 3 in the afternoon? So what have you eaten so far today? And they're like, Cheetos and a cup of coffee. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, now I know, now I know where to start. So, sleep, nutrition, all these foundational things, a lot of times we're not paying attention to them.
Mhm.
And I think if you have the capacity to do more integrated work, then you help people move along in their life journey in such a more efficient and profound way. So,
I'm right there. I completely agree. But like moving, because like, well, I know for my listeners, they don't need to be convinced of the work you're doing. But something that's super cool is you're bridging that gap because it isn't just the holistic wellness humans. It's like
right.
moving it into the science sphere. Can this actually aid and assist? Because why wouldn't we want to help as many people as possible?
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of work. to be done in this domain. It's interesting. I've talked with some physicians, and they just have said it's going to be hard to get into the medical community, but I don't know that that's 100% true. Like people in hospice and palliative care and some of these other domains. I mean, even deliveries,
That's,
OBGYN,
yeah,
things like
baby.
that. There's
Yeah.
more, I think there's more recognition, and there's been more of an invitation to people who bring in other modalities. So I'm quite hopeful. There's a lot of work to do, but I'm ready to do it.
Yes, I'm smiling because it's like, oh, the people that work in birth and death. It's like the
I know. Oh
they're the
my
one, that's
gosh.
where we have access, right? We have access. It's like a portal when life is born into this world. And then when you're born to the other side, it's a birthday to the other side, right? You're
Yeah.
when you're leaving, you have these two, the entrance and the exit. That's when the people that work in those fields, they're like, we know that there's something going on with those.
Yeah.
That's the portal in and the portal out. We'll
There's
listen to
actually
these.
something more there. And this Calm the Storm album was really designed for around networks of chronic pain,
Ooh,
insomnia,
okay.
and migraine. And
Okay.
so it's not, music is not one size fit all. And so it's going to take different types of music, which hopefully I'll be able to have a part in, to address different things. But I bring up chronic pain, well, insomnia too, because these are also puzzles for our traditional care system, our traditional medical system. So there's many, many people with chronic pain. And it's interesting that both hypnotherapy, so I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist, that hypnotherapy and music both can have a profound effect on chronic pain. And
Mhm.
that's why I imaged the chronic pain network. Insomnia is another one. I think even most physicians would say taking Ambien or other medicines over long haul time is not good for you. It
Agreed.
ruins your sleep architecture. It's not the best thing for the brain. These things should be used in a temporary way, so we have to find other ways to help ourselves sleep.
Right.
And
It's like a quick fix for, but when you have a dependency, then what happens when you don't have it? So, or like, and over time also, these things don't work as well
it's
as,
yeah, so
yeah.
I mean, that's a whole conversation in and of itself, but having good sleep hygiene, setting the stage for sleep, and music is one way of doing that. And so if you people want to look at the sleep network and how it changed, I have some pre and post images on the website about that. But music is one way. You can't do everything wrong, play music, and it's gonna put you to sleep. No, that isn't gonna work. But it's another little piece of the puzzle that can be
Yeah.
helpful. And why wouldn't you use it? It's easy.
Yeah.
It's cheap. You pay $20 for a download off our website, or you pull music up off Spotify that's similar to what we're doing. Um,
I have another question that is sort of just a diverging a little bit is I'm thinking like, so in the spiritual community, there's all these different frequencies, the hertz of something. It's like this is the 111 frequency or the 222 frequency. What does that mean? Like I've always kind of wondered, like some of my meditation teachers in the past have used these different healing frequencies and I see those words, but maybe you could actually tell me what that means.
Yeah, so there's like, yeah, 432, there's the solfeggio
Yeah.
frequencies and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So, so a frequency is really just an oscillation, and an oscillation is really just an up and down wave that goes through the air. I mean, it's kind of funny when you think about it. So, we have a sine wave. Maybe if you remember a wave from math and
Hmm?
junior high or high school, what a sine wave is. And you can actually play a sine wave. And a sine wave has a very kind of clear tone to it. Because our ear picks this up and turns this into this perception. So the frequency is how fast that wave is going. So let me tell you about, I'm going to tell you about it in the brain, and then we'll translate it back into sound. So
Okay.
Your brain has cells in them called neurons, and the way we think is these neurons fire and they create little electrical output, sorry. And some of these neurons put out little bursts of electricity 1 time a second. Some of them put out 4 times a second or 3 times a second. So they're little pieces of electricity, tick, 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 tick. And then, so those would be delta. That would be a slow frequency when your brain is firing 1 to 4 times a second. So frequency is how fast that information is getting out. Now, beta is that bright-eyed, bushy-tailed wave when you're like on and you're listening and you're taking notes in class and you're remembering everything. And then your neurons are firing like 20 times, 25 times, 30 times a second. And so that frequency would be 25. So that's what frequency is. It's how fast that wave is going.
Okay.
So if you think of it as a wave on the water, right? So we've all seen these big swells. That would be a slow wave. So the hertz on that would be slow. The frequency would be slow. And then sometimes you see those little riffles on top. Those would be the faster frequencies.
Okay.
So that's what a frequency is. And it's interesting because some of these frequencies are associated with different states. So for example, master meditators make all kinds of what we call gamma, which is 40 hertz. So their neurons are firing 40 times a second. That would be considered a fast wave in EEG. So that's what frequency refers to. So when someone says 432 hertz, or the frequency is 432, that means whatever that is firing 432 times a second. And your brain picks that up. And different frequencies create different pitches, what we call, so whether it's high or low, right? So in music, the lower frequencies are slower. The lower tones, the lower frequencies are the lower tones, and the higher frequencies are the higher tones.
And
Does any of that make sense?
It did. I was along for the ride. I can feel the energy of it. Not all of the words make sense in my logical mind, but I understand what you're saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, if you just think of frequency of how slow or fast something's happening, that's probably the easiest way to think about it.
And so you made Calm the Storm in order to hit the brain to help it with chronic pain, migraine, and insomnia.
Yeah. And so that's why it has such a calming, I got a text from a friend of mine who had listened to it, and she said, wow, no, we feel a lot better, but it calmed our dogs down too. And so I think what's happening is these networks are just starting to pace in general to this. And you see it, right? Like it's the slower, more lyrical sounds. But we also wanted something that stood on its own as music, right? So some of these things are just sounds. And after a while, I think for me at least, it's a little hard to just listen to a tone. Whereas if I have a song and then I can actually sing that song to myself afterwards, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So these things, we wanted something that also stood on its own as just a piece of music. And so that's, I feel happy. I think we achieved that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is very, very cool. I truly appreciate meeting you, Barbara, and what a joy. Yeah, what a delight.
Thank you. It's so fun to be here and talk about this stuff that I'm obsessed with.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, Barbara, tell us more where people can find Calm the Storm, and of course, I'll put everything in the show notes as well. But tell us more.
Yeah, so musicandhealing.net is the website, and you can go there and read about a little bit about me and a little bit about Pepino, buy the album if you're interested, listen to samples, look at some of the brain maps, and then I have I'm just putting a post once a month on there that also has information about some of the research on music and healing and a little bit about my own story if people are interested. And then people are also, you're always welcome to get a hold of me. My email's drbminton@gmail.com. drbminton@gmail.com. And I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and all the usual stuff.
So if we have magically have a therapist of some form, psychiatrist, psychologist that wants to get in touch with you and maybe do a little collaboration of
Yeah,
you
I love to
down,
do
perhaps
that.
that would be so
Uh-huh.
cool.
Yeah, we're definitely looking for collaborators. We're looking for opportunities to get this out there. Pepino's fantastic. I mean, he's just a warm. He's a very deep listener. He's very charismatic. Just watching him play is just so much fun. And so, it's kind of this great combination of the music and the experience and the science. And it's been so fun to really meld art and science together. And so we love to share that with people.
Yeah. By chance, are you playing anything live while you're in the Berkeley area?
We are. We're trying to put together some. We have some venues, and we're trying to put together some dates right now. So yeah. But if
Awesome.
anybody wants to sponsor something, we're totally open, or has some suggestions, we'd love to hear from you.
Cool. This is so cool. Oh, Barbara, thank you so much, Dr.
You're
Mint.
welcome.
I really appreciate it visiting, and I have loved learning all of this, and I can't wait to actually share this episode with my husband. And I'm going to keep in touch with you in a way where if you do something in Berkeley, we're going to get in our car and come.
Love it. All right. I'm counting on you now.
Yes. My brain is already firing, and I'm like, do we know anybody with spaces? I have a lot of theater friends. Like, what's going on and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, this has been such a pleasure. And just as we sign off here, I just wanted to tell you that I love you. God, Universe, Source loves you. And I hope that you have a wonderful day.